Coming up, a character-driven horror story set in the Pennsylvania woods.
An obituary writer accidentally declares himself dead.
Plus, our distraction of the week. I'm Mel.
I'm Dave. This is the Library of Lost Time.
In this house, we are Chuck Wendig fans.
Yeah, both of his work and of his person.
Agreed. We've talked about several of his books before, but in case you're not familiar with him or his work, here's a quick overview. He's an American author from my home state of Pennsylvania and often sets his books there. He seems to be a genuinely kind, intelligent person, and he's very generous with other writers. And he writes books that are dark, dark, dark. Like Stephen King, he has a gift for writing absolutely batshit stories, populated with characters that feel like real people. He creates people you want to hang out with and then completely mucks up their lives with nasty villains or traumatic events, often with an uncanny slant to them.
Yeah, every writer kind of takes their hero and throws them in the dark hole, and Chuck really takes that to heart.
He does. He's very good at it.
Yep.
In his catalog, you'll find a duology about an apocalyptic disease, a supernatural family drama, an urban fantasy about a girl who can see the death of anyone she touches, a techno thriller about killer ants, and my current favorite, Black River Orchard, a horror novel about apples that are so delicious they destroy people's lives. So he kind of plays around in different genres, but the connecting thread of all of them is that he's really good at creating characters you care about.
Yes, he is.
And he delves into trauma in ways that are not beating you over the head with it, but at the end you're like, oh, I see. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And his new one is definitely in that vein. It's called The Staircase in the Woods. And the setup is pretty irresistible to me. It's 1998 in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. A group of 5 ride-or-die friends are camping when they discover a staircase in the woods. Matty is their charismatic and impulsive de facto leader. He climbs the stairs and disappears.
What?
Yeah. And as you might expect, as the friends grow up and deal with the fact that their friend disappeared up a mysterious staircase in the middle of the woods, they drift apart.
That feels a lot like the second half of It.
Yes. I feel like there are some It vibes in this. It's kind of a reflection on how those intense friendships that you have when you're little kids are like really hard to sustain into adulthood anyway.
Yeah.
And then throw some
trauma in there.
Yeah.
And it's going to be
really tough.
Yeah.
Until 20 years later, when a new tragedy compels the friends to reunite. They go back to the woods and they find another staircase.
Uh-oh.
But this time, they all climb it together.
My eyebrows are all the way up.
Mine are too.
Yeah.
The Guardian said that what lies at the top of the staircase is, quote, pleasingly nightmarish and very messed up.
That's fun.
I heard Chuck discussing this book on a podcast. I call him Chuck because I feel like we're friends.
Yeah.
Even though it's clearly a horror novel, he said he wanted to examine friendship, and specifically the bonds that can form among friends when they're young, brought together by the big and small traumas of being a kid. The book opens with a preface, and I just want to read a little snippet so you can get a sense of the tone.
Okay.
Friendship is like a house. You move into this place together. You find your own room there, and they find theirs, but there's all this common space, and you each put into it all the things you love, all the things you are. You put your hearts on the coffee table next to the remote control, vulnerable and beautiful and bloody. And this friendship, this house, it's a place of laughter and fun and togetherness. But there's frustration sometimes, agitation. Friendship, like a house, can go bad too. Gets bad enough, one or all of you have to move out. And then the place just sits there, abandoned, empty and gutted. Another ruin left to that force in the world that wants everything to fall apart. You can move back into a place like that sometimes, but only if you tear it all down and start again. Oh, I want to read more.
Yeah.
If you like a group of tight-knit friends whose outsider status brings them together, like The Goonies or It or Stranger Things, and you're up for the delicious thrill of being scared. This sounds like a good one. It's The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig.
My book this week is I See You've Called In Dead.
That's a great title.
By John Kenny. Yeah. As you might have guessed from the title, it's a funny book. And I have to confess, I'm not usually a fan of funny books. I suspect it's a character flaw of mine. I do like books that are funny, but usually only when the humor is layered with something else, like The Boat Who Wouldn't Float by Farley Mowat. That's funny, but it's also an adventure story. The funny isn't the point, it's the flavor. And honestly, that's kind of how I feel about this book. At first glance, it reads like a quirky little comedy, and it is, but there's also a little more going on. And you might not see that right away, especially if you're going off the blurb or the first few pages, but hang in there. The story centers on Bud Stanley. Bud is a middle-aged obituary writer for one of the news agencies in New York City. Bud's life is not going great. When the book opens, he's on a painful blind date. His date is 45 minutes late, and when she finally shows up, she explains that she was late because she was reconciling with her ex-boyfriend. Here's some dialogue from that scene. "Well, one drink and we'll get you on your way." I winked at her like we were old friends. I was floundering badly, watching myself. A kind of out-of-body experience where I was repulsed by this person. Me. No, I mean, he's waiting for me. He's outside. He's outside now. Yeah, she looked over to the door. Actually, it looks like he's made his way inside. There he is. She smiled and waved at him. I did the same. So did the bartender. Cool, I said. I don't think I've ever been on a blind date where someone brought their boyfriend. Well, former boyfriend. I'd say invite him over for a drink, but you probably have plans. We do. We both smiled and nodded and looked back over at her ex-boyfriend. He's very handsome, I said, regretting it immediately. Isn't he? I will tell him you said so. So after that debacle, Bud goes home and he pours himself a scotch and then another. And in a moment that's both sort of darkly funny and unexpectedly poignant, he writes his own obituary. He makes up stuff he wishes he had done. He claims he was a founding member of Tears for Fears and one of the original Pips for Gladys Knight and fluent in 7 languages. And then because of the scotch and the sadness and a bit of reflex, he sends it.
Amazing.
He posts it to the paper's internal systems. And the next morning is chaos, right? Bud's boss wants to fire him immediately, but he can't because the agency's administration system has logged Bud as dead, and apparently you can't fire a dead man. Bud has triggered his own death. The newspaper wants to sue him. His friends and family are angry at him. It's a mess. What unfolds is sort of a midlife redemption arc. Bud leans into his work. He starts going to funerals, not his own, and finds little comfort in them. And he makes new connections, and he tries and fits and starts to piece his life back together. It's a little how Bud got his groove back, but with obituaries and emotional honesty. One of the pleasures in this novel is its strong sense of place. The Brooklyn of right now is alive on that page. It's funny and cranky and complicated, and you feel like you're walking around the neighborhood with Bud and watching him slowly unstick himself. John Kenny, the author, is a longtime contributor to The New Yorker. His debut novel, Truth in Advertising, won the Thurber Prize for American Humor. He's also known for satirical poetry collections. He wrote love poems for married people and love poems for anxious people. So he knows his way around jokes and feelings. And that's why I like this book. It's funny, but it's also about grief. It's about loneliness and middle age and weird little moments that remind us why we're still alive. There's a little 6 Feet Under in there and a little The Office and a little Less by Andrew Sean Greer. It just came out a few weeks ago. If you want something that'll make you laugh and feel things and maybe send a weird late night text to your best friend, give this one a go. It's I See You've Called In Dead by John Kenny.
And now, our distraction of the week.
The PEN America Literary Awards are coming up. The 2025 ceremony will be held on May 8th, which is next Wednesday if you're listening to this near release day. PEN America will be awarding over $350,000 in prizes to authors across a wide range of categories.
I love that they honor authors, but also give them prizes that are worth a decent amount of money.
Yes.
It's not just a token, take yourself out to dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot.
It's really great.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about PEN America and what they're doing. In addition to the cash, of course, they are giving the kind of weight of gravitas that can really change a writer's career. And both of those things can be huge. So I found that out and I thought, I'll do a quick rundown of some of the books that are nominated and we'll just breeze on. And friends, there are rabbit holes within rabbit holes on this one. So I'm going to walk you through a few things I learned and what I found interesting about this year's awards. First, a bit of history. I'll admit I didn't know much about PEN America beyond the name. It turns out it's part of PEN International. That was founded back in 1921 in London. That was just after World War I. And the idea was simple and kind of beautiful. Maybe we could understand each other a little bit better if we read each other's books. Poets, essayists, and novelists, that's where the acronym for PEN comes from. PEN America started up the following year in 1922, and today their 4,500 members include journalists and playwrights and translators and publishers, and as they say, devoted readers and supporters. PEN America is an active advocate for issues around writing. So if you go to the PEN America site, the first thing you'll read is, PEN America stands at the intersection of literature and human rights to protect free expression in the United States and worldwide. We champion the freedom to write, recognizing the power of the word to transform the world. They take on First Amendment issues and book banning. They have programs that promote writing in jails and teach media literacy to counter disinformation. It's a literary organization with the heart of a civic rights group. Now, about the awards, and yes, this can get a little confusing. There are lots of PEN organizations. Mm-hmm. There's PEN Ireland and PEN England and PEN Portugal and PEN Hungary. You get the idea. And many of them have their own awards. There's also the PEN Faulkner Award, which is its own thing. That award spun off back in 1980s in protest of the American Book Awards, which some writers felt were getting too commercial. PEN Faulkner does its own ceremony, and their winners get announced on May 15th. So coming up. Are we done with the confusion?
I can tell by your face that we're not.
It's true. Within PEN America, there are a bunch of awards, and many of them have wildly specific names. So, for instance, there's the PEN Hemingway Award for Debut Novel. There's the PEN Diamondstein Spielvogel Award for the Art of the Essay. There's the PEN E.O. Wilson Literary Science Writing Award, and so on. It amuses me no end that the writer organization has incredibly confusing names for its awards.
It's pretty awesome.
At the top of the PEN America pyramid is the PEN Gene Stein Book Award. And this is the big one, $75,000 for a single work that pushes boundaries, challenges convention, and has lasting impact. Only 3 books are nominated this year, and they are wildly different from each other.
Cool.
So let's start with Dead in Long Beach, California by Vanita Blackburn. This is a debut novel.
Wow.
Yeah. We follow a woman who discovers her brother has died and then begins replying to his text messages as if she were him.
Oh.
Yeah. It's got grief and disconnection and a very meta structure. Blackburn plays with form in some wild ways. There are fake social media posts and broken timelines and imagined conversations. One of the reviewers said, quote, "Reading this novel was like having a conversation with a brilliant hyperactive person who's a bad listener, and I couldn't follow half of what was being said, but somehow, on a level more fugue than semantic, the story cohered into a reading experience, something like attending a poetry slam in a foreign language with which I only have a passing familiarity." 4 stars.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Next up is With My Back to the World, Poems by Victoria Chang. This poetry collection is a tribute to Agnes Martin, who was an abstract artist. The poems respond directly to Martin's paintings.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like many of the poems have the names of Martin's works. So Chang is speaking to the art and sometimes through the art. It's intimate and cerebral and emotional all at the same time. It was one of NPR's best books of the year. The Guardian named it one of their best poetry books of the year. And in a very weird plot twist, it was a Today Show pick.
Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unexpected,
Yeah,
but okay,
right?
cool.
Yeah.
It seems like it could be a fun project to get a book of the paintings and the poetry and side by side those things.
Finally, we have On Freedom by Timothy Snyder. And if you recognize the name, it might be from On Tyranny, one of his other books. Snyder is a historian who writes about despots and democracy. And On Freedom, he looks at what freedom means in modern life. The book walks a fine line between having a lot to say but being surprisingly readable, like an after-hours conversation with your favorite professor or something. He weaves in REM and Frank Zappa and George Orwell and Ray Bradbury and connects ideas from Kyiv to Washington, D.C. It's very current. Maybe you're having conversations like this in your home, and it never feels like homework. If none of these titles grab you, there are plenty of other PEN Awards categories to explore. There's debut fiction, essays, memoir, science writing, translation. The list goes on. We'll put a link in the notes. And if you're curious, the winners will be announced at the PEN America Literary Awards ceremony in New York City on May 8th. If you're in the area, tickets are available. You can go rub shoulders with some brilliant writers. And if you're the kind of person who wants to support literary freedom because book banners suck, consider joining PEN. For $50 a year, you can become a reader member and be part of this community that champions the power of empathy through writing.
Visit strongsenseofplace.com/library for more on the books we talked about today and how you can engage with the awesome work of PEN America.
Thanks for joining us in the Library of Lost Time. Remember to visit your local library and your independent bookstore to lose some time yourself.
Stay curious. We'll talk to you soon.